Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Monday the 14th of July. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Waikato District Council has been fined $56,250 for its discharge of approximately 5 million litres of partially treated sewage into Raglan Harbour in June last year. The discharge was as a result of an overflowing treatment pond at the Raglan Wastewater Treatment Plant into an estuarine arm of the harbour. The overflow occurred over a 3-day period and resulted in contaminant flowing past the local boat ramp, campground and over shellfish beds. In imposing the fine, Hamilton District Court Judge David Kirkpatrick noted that errors committed by District Council staff were of a systematic nature, revealing poor training, supervision and ultimately management. The Hamilton City Council recently adopted the annual plan for 2014 and 15. Among the key projects to be approved are the Central City Transformation Plan, Safety in the Central City Initiatives and the River Plan. Mayor of Hamilton City, Julie Hardacre, explains some of the most positive aspects of the annual plan.
Well, obviously the reinvestment in the Hamilton Gardens. Finally, we're going to get on with 5 new gardens in that area and some great infrastructure. And people are loving it, absolutely loving it. So that's the best thing to come out of the annual plan.
Top seed and Tauranga favourite Ben Grindrod is well placed for a final push in the Tauranga Squash Open after beating Commonwealth Games Queen Joelle King in front of a packed crowd over the weekend. Held at the Devoy Squash and Fitness Centre, the annual tournament attracted 180 entries of different skill levels, including players from the United States. Tauranga Squash President Shah Niles says the opening rounds of the tournament proved a huge drawcard for squash fans, along with Grindrod's victory against King. Tauranga Energy Consumer Trust is reminding consumers they have until July 15th to submit feedback on a $15 million funding proposal for a new tertiary campus in the city centre. The $88.8 million campus, to be built on land gifted by the Tauranga City Council in Durham Street, is being developed by the Bay of Plenty Tertiary Education Partnership. This partnership is between 4 autonomous institutions, the Bay of Plenty Polytechnic, Wairiki Institute of Technology, Te Whare Wānanga o Awanuiairangi and the University of Waikato. The Bay of Plenty Regional Council has committed up to $15 million in funding from its Regional Infrastructure Fund for the new campus, subject to conditions, while the University of Waikato will front up $58.8 million. Hamilton's Clarence Street Theatre was packed out over the weekend as hundreds of locals flooded to be some of the first to see New Zealand rock opera musical State Highway 48. The locally written musical is based on the at times tumultuous journey of life at middle age, and following opening night, the writer himself, Hamilton musician Chris Williams, says he couldn't be more impressed with the turnout or the standard of performance. Now for our marine forecast. West Coast, Raglan, southerly rising early tomorrow 20 knots. Your high tide is at 12:10 in the afternoon. East Coast, Bay of Plenty, southerly rising to 15 knots in the morning and mostly fine. High tide is at 9:08 a.m. in Tauranga. Just ahead, measles outbreak. Is it over? Welcome to Central News on TV Central. The Waikato has faced an outbreak of measles in recent time, mostly in youth, and some schools have been placed in quarantine. Annie spoke with the DHB to find out if the school holidays will help slow down the spread of measles or if it could spread to other areas as people go away on holiday.
Well, yes or no. I think the answer is either or. I mean, we don't really know. We're hoping that it will do. We're hoping that it will slow it down, but I mean, a toss of coin really. With lots of information out there about measles, what to look for if you are going away, particularly if you're unimmunised, what to do if you become unwell with similar symptoms, and also, you know, lots of information about this is a chance to check your immunisation status and to begin your immunisations if you haven't had any before now.
What's been the worst affected school?
Well, the worst affected with the most numbers related to really was Fraser High School, and I think in general the majority of our cases have been in contact or connected in some way or form to the measles cases within Fraser High.
How do you catch the measles?
Well, sitting like this, me maybe quite unwell with a bit of a cough and a cold. So it's droplet spread, so it can sort of go in the air, maybe about maybe a metre and fall down. But also rubbing eyes, transferring it to others when you're washing hands and that kind of. So make sure you wash your hands. Make sure you cough and sneeze into a tissue and then throw the tissue away. Wash your hands. Can prevent some of that spread, but it is because of that droplet. It is quite an infectious virus.
When are you most contagious?
Most contagious, probably the first couple of days of symptoms, but you are also infectious probably a day before you know you've got it. So you're more infectious when you've got, runny eyes, runny nose, that's making you sneeze, it's giving you the chance to spread the virus. But in general, we know that it's probably a couple of days before you're unwell or you can also be infectious. So, this is why they spread so easily and so readily, is because we can't see someone who's unwell with it.
The symptoms sound like they could also be the colds or a flu. Is this causing confusion?
I think in the beginning they do, but with measles you will get a rash. In what we're seeing with our cases is that they are quite unwell, particularly teenagers, and that they do seem to have a realm of symptoms, which is the cough, the cold, the sore throat. We are actually seeing another illness with a rash, and we've tested almost as many, and they have been negative for measles. So the GPs are finding it difficult, not only because of the beginning of the symptoms that sound like coughs and colds, but also there is another rash going around. So we're being much more heightened awareness in most of our cases, and in particular those are unimmunised or have a particular link to Fraser, through sort of siblings, etc.
What should people do if they think they or their child has got the measles?
Well, obviously, thinking about the symptoms, we talk about being in isolation. So stay at home as soon as possible. Even if it's a couple of days and you don't get any rash and you become well, at least you've sort of made sure that other people are not getting what you have. If you are unwell or unsure, then there's Healthline to ring, or always phone your GP and talk to them about it. We are trying to test people, so we want to make sure that they are aware of what they have or don't have. But there are lots of, infection control procedures in place to make sure that you don't infect inadvertently someone else within the practice where you go. If your child or yourself are really unwell, then there's no reason why you shouldn't go to the hospital, etc. But make sure that you phone them or let them know that it could be measles when you're going in.
How are measles treated?
So it's symptoms. It's by your symptomology. So it's basically you support people with what symptoms they have. So if it's a coughs and colds in general, there's not much that we do for those kind of things. There's no antibiotic, it's a virus. But what we do is lots of fluids. Fluids and dehydration seems to be one of the things. So obviously keeping your child hydrated is a good thing. And then the treatment of secondary complications. So if it's a viral pneumonia, then supporting respiratory, etc. within the hospital settings.
And what are some of the complications?
So, viral pneumonia and encephalopathy, probably the main ones, and they're about 1 in 1,000 in patients, so for every 1,000 cases of measles, probably 1 to 2 people will have that. So not massively common, but if you think about, we've got 100 cases now, so yeah, so it's a numbers game. A lot of people, we seem to have got quite a number of, probably about 9 to 10 hospital admissions, so that's 10% of cases, which is quite high for any numbers, and obviously the greater the number, the more the hospital admission. So, and we have had a couple of cases, one with the viral pneumonia. So,
apart from immunisation, what are some other precautions people could be taking?
I suppose, as we've said before, making sure that you're aware of the signs and symptoms, and to probably isolate sooner rather than later and seek clarification of your disease, particularly if you get a rash. Staying at home and away from people with those kind of symptoms, washing hands, cough and sneeze etiquette. So the kind of information that we spread around in wintertime anyway, for the common colds, the noroviruses, that's all the similar way of spread. Apart from we've got this droplet spread as well with the with the measles virus. Yeah.
And if they've already been immunised?
In general, we say for there's no absolutes with immunisation, but 95 to 96% with the MMR are fully immune, which should be fully immune with 2 MMRs. Those who are not immunised, if you 100 people who are not immunised, especially under 20s, then you're probably looking at about 98% who are not immune. So it's definitely the proportions are very different there.
If you have any further questions on measles or the MMR immunisation, contact your local doctor or nurse or phone Healthline on 0800 611 116. Coming up next on Central News, Te Puna Hall, should it go, and computer graphic design. Welcome back to Central News. An award-winning and internationally acclaimed computer graphic designer is a lecturer at the University of Waikato. With Keith Sue residing in our regions, I could not let the opportunity pass by to interview an international expert in the field about his career and how improving technology has affected the industry. Does a computer pretty much do everything now?
Well, I would say that as well. I always tell my students, the computer is just a tool. Just like a carpenter can be, the carpenter is good. It's not because, of course, basically it's because of his craftsmanship. But the thing is, craftsmanship, everyone can be trained. But a carpenter is good because of his imagination into details and why the reasoning, because how he designed the things. That makes him unique. But as I say, I can train them as a carpenter, as a school, as in everyone will be able to do A to Z. But the thing is, if that's the case, what is the in-between? What makes you special from the other people? So I always tell my students that the technology is only there to help you. The most important thing is your own self, your creativity. You have to believe in yourself and what's your training like and what do you like as a person. Because everyone is different, Because even you grow up in the same household, you are different. You're the different individual because of your experience with your parents, your experience with things, your toys, and all the things that you've seen. So I actually encourage them to believe in themselves and bring out the best of what they believe in. Of course, before that, again, you have to be experimental. You have to learn a lot from your mistakes and be brave enough to admit that that's a mistake and be open-minded to listen to criticism. That's how you actually become a unique and special individual as a graphic designer. Yeah.
You've won some pretty prestigious awards around the world. Can you tell me about that?
Being the first one to do it. Have you seen anyone doing this before? Maybe you have seen something similar, but what have changed? What other meaning have I brought into this piece of art? I always tell my student, again, I'm always quoting my student and my friends, saying that always give reason to a design, even to all the way down to a little screwdriver. Why do you have to place that screwdriver at that point? The more reason you give to your design, the more wholesome it is. So when people attack it from any point of view, you can say it, there's a reason. And when people understand where you're coming from, they find it as, I always treat people who actually throw me a question as my customer, potential buyer to buy my product. Because as I said, if I can convince everyone in any way, that means that it's a good design, it's well protected. Yeah, so that's the reason why, I think the reason why I win that award back then is because firstly, there's a shock effect because everybody was fascinated about hologram. You see Star Wars, Princess Leia is on top of a palm. And basically the curiosity is how do we achieve that in a way that everybody has experience with it, but they somehow lost touch with it. The basic concept is very simple. The idea is when we actually, it's a collaborative work. When we are talking and there's a fish tank and lights just beam through the windows and shine onto the water and then and fracture it into the tank. And there you see somehow it's a hologram. So we think of, what if we have animation or graphics underneath it with a tank of water, and there you go. You'll be able to see a holographic event happening in between the water. And the next thing is, how do you engage people? Because that thing is going to be stagnant and it's not going to be interesting. So the next thing is, why do you do something like a motion detection on top where people can move things in the water move the holographic in the water, and every movement accompanied with a sound. So that's how our idea started. So we have actually 3 themes. One is basic shapes, and one is flowers, and another one is line art. So if you have seen the project, you will know that it is based on, again, back to my methodology about sensor, sight and sound, sight and movement. Yep.
Computer graphic design, with its increase in popularity, has become quite a super competitive industry. What would be your advice to someone starting out?
Well, my advice for them is, firstly, you must be really passionate about design. Because once you get into design, you find that it is a training. You know, if I were to quote it as graphic design back in ancient time, it would be like Leonardo, how he actually learned to be a painter. He is a disciple of another artist. So designer is a very a niche career. As in, when you come in, this is all you learn. Of course, you learn about other things that helps you, electives to help you, but you just have to be very conscious about what you want to get out from here. And now I know that with technology, design is like everywhere now. You can be a 3D animated graphic designer and all that. Yes, you can be anything you want. I know, as I told my student, you can transform yourself from a graphic designer to a motion graphic designer to anything. Is based on training of the tools. But the most important thing is what brings you from one form to another form is the passion. You wanted to be something. You wanted to know what can graphics bring you to. It's more about the curiosity and passion. And I think what I believe is they see that in me. So I always tell them that it's more about passion. Because every time when they talk about design, I get very involved. I can show them about a lot of these examples. And I also like to hear from their point of view what they think about design, because the world is so big. I think that not even fashion. I think I only see just a point bit of things. So if I can learn from others, it's the good things. Even I told my students, the reason why what makes me different from them is not the education. It's just that I have more experience in this field. For them, is that eventually they might have been more experience with me than me actually. And then it's more about communicating with each other. You just have to share your design and all that. I know that the people think that, once you share the design, aren't you letting your secret out? I say, no, actually it's the other way. You share your design, when people come back to you, you actually protect your secret, because they know that originally that design actually comes from you. It's not from them. And then the thing is, I always challenge my students too. Tell me one thing that you can think of that nobody has done it before. They said, maybe not. Yeah, exactly. Design is all about improvisation. You see something, you actually develop it better or get more ideas and change it. And basically that's not just design, it's actually life. We learn from what our experience. Your parents will tell you that do not touch the hot kettle, right? And even if you want to touch it, you'll find a way to touch it in a safer way. It's about getting technology and improvising and getting better, yeah.
After the break, your weather and Te Puna Memorial Hall's future. Welcome back to Central News. Western Bay of Plenty District Council is seeking the views of the Te Puna community on the future of the Te Puna War Memorial Hall, once it is removed to make way for the new roundabout on the corner of Te Puna and Minden Roads and State Highway 2. Unfortunately, removal of the hall is a requirement of the project due to the amount of land required to build the roundabout and the associated roading links. Mayor Ross Patterson explains how the community will not be left in the dark.
There is a new roundabout proposed in 2015 on the State Highway at Te Puna, but the problem is that the Minden Hall, or the Te Puna Hall, is in the wrong area. We need to shift it. Now it could be shifted to 30 or 40 metres to accommodate the roundabout, or it could be shifted to another new site. It is a War Memorial Hall, so it is very significant. And that is why we're out talking to the people, not so much about the roundabout, but just where they want the hall and how they want to see their hall. Do we shift the hall? Do they want a new hall? There's a whole range of questions. So it's a discussion that's very important for that area. The Minden Te Puna, there's a lot of people travel in and out of there to Tauranga, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing what's coming out of that discussion.
On the whole, the Te Puna community, are they happy about that new roundabout that is proposed?
Oh, definitely. It's quite a concern. People have a slip lane to access the service station, but getting away from there and back out into the highway can be a challenge, and it's most important that we look at the road safety of that area and improve it to what it is. It carries a very high volume of traffic, just as much as it goes over the Kaimai on State Highway 29, and a lot of it is trucks as well. So there is a need to do the road safety and the upgrade, and Te Puna residents have been waiting quite a while for this.
Will Western Bay District Council have to fund any of that new roundabout?
Only on our part of the hall stuff will be ours, plus any works that we do in our area that we wish to incorporate into it, and there could be some work there.
The council recently won a Ministry of Environment Green Ribbon Award for Public Sector Leadership 2014. What was that for?
That was about biosolids and waste. We do not take our biosolids and put them into landfills like a lot of other councils do. We actually process them through worm farms and turn them into usable fertiliser at the end of the day. So it's sustainable and have a product at the end of it that's not dumped into landfills, that we actually put out into the community and can use in our environment again.
So this is wastewater and stormwater runoff?
It's not the wastewater, it's called sludge that every year or 2 years we clean out the bottom of the pond. And that is the material that we process through worm farms and turn it into a fertiliser.
Where is most of this worm fertiliser distributed to?
It can be commercial, but usually we spread it back on non-milking dairy farms, or back into forestry, or back into the commercial sector.
So you're quite pleased and proud of your staff for what they do?
Oh, very pleased. We have a very incredible staff, high quality and quite focused. And they continue to bring these awards home, and it's just amazing. I did not even expect this one. Next thing, it just popped up. It was great.
Just going back to the Te Puna War Memorial Hall, Council is holding an open day at the hall on Thursday the 31st of July from 12 noon to 7:30 p.m. to ensure that as many members of the community as possible are able to express their views. Weather for Tuesday now. Hamilton, you will have a fine Tuesday with some light winds. Your expected high is 14 and a chilly 0 overnight. The rest of the Waikato mainly fine with a southerly breeze bringing in some coolness to the air. Your expected high, Paeroa, is 14 and an overnight low of 1. Matamata 12 and 0. Te Aomutu 14 and 0. Tokoroa 12 and 3. Bay Plenty, Tauranga mainly fine with light winds for your Tuesday. Your expected high is 16 and an overnight low of 4. The rest of the bay fine apart from a few showers near the eastern ranges and cool southerlies. 15 and 7 for you, Te Puke. That is the news for today. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can by liking our Facebook page, centralnews.tv, or email us at news@tvcentral.co.nz. Join me again tomorrow night as I head along to Greeton to talk with the minds behind the yarn bombing and catch up on the Waikato Regional and Hamilton City annual plans. I'm Hilary Entwistle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.